wasn't entirely sure whether we should cover this one because it just seemed to be a news story that was speculative. There were a lot of sources coming up with it, but essentially there's reports emerging that Rockstar, and we've got more of that about them in our next news story, have canned potential remasters for Red Dead Redemption, the original one, and GTA 4. Tom, what do you make of this?
Well, in the first instance, it is a shame because those games do need, well, not so much Red Dead. I mean, Red Dead more so overall, but it's kind of like these games have needed a little bit of an update in the similar vein as The Last of Us has had several updates now, and it feels like they're leaning on the fact, it appears, that the GTA trilogy just didn't land as well as it should have. And we covered this extensively with comparisons to the PS2 version, where they stripped out so much of the identity of those games, the atmosphere, the color grading, and just didn't go far enough with the updates to the character models and the way they performed. The motion capture on those. So that trilogy was in an awkward spot where it wasn't far enough to justify existing, and they made some artistic errors in terms of the tone and everything. That the whole aesthetic was ruined if you're going in for a nostalgia trip on those. So it feels like they should definitely do these remasters or even remakes if we want to go that far, but do it the right way, because that was the problem. It wasn't fundamentally approached with the right mindset, and the result spoke for itself. And Oliver's most recent YouTube analysis, it was kind of looking at the more recent updates of it, still haven't solved all the issues. There's still grass hovering over the ground. There's still plants sticking out of the road. It just looks like it's not good. If they really care, I would be all up for it, but that just shows they didn't care enough to push the bar of quality high. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to see Red Dead Redemption, the original. We've got a nice way to play it on back compat on Xbox One X and Series X, of course. I believe those are 4K now, natively.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so that's fantastic, and it's a good way to do it. But there's clearly scope to go even further and do a lot more with those games, and especially in light of Red Dead 2, which looks incredible. They could bring it up to par with the visual quality on that. But I don't know what you guys reckon.
Alex, where do you land on this? Because as a PC guy, I mean, there's no Red Dead on PC.
Yeah.
GTA 4, I don't know what you make of the quality of that port, but it was certainly very different to the console versions. How does this news arrive in Shave Italia?
Here in the chateau, we like good PC ports. GTA 4, actually, back in the day, I have a split mind on it. It did scale quite a bit higher than those console versions, which was really interesting at the time, but it also has just it's really finicky. I've ran it on new PCs where it has trouble getting above 20 FPS for some reason, and I just don't know why. I've also ran it at times where it's skyrocketing performance. So it is obviously has some compatibility issues, apparently, with newer hardware and or newer Windows revisions, maybe.
Right.
So that's an issue that I would have loved to have seen tackled, perhaps via a patch. I don't know if it really needs a remaster, because the game itself is these games are huge. Remastering them is a really big effort. They're big open worlds, and then redoing, if you want to make them remastered in the remake kind of sense, that means redoing all these assets. And you're basically making a whole new game at that point, with the modern asset pipelines. That's what the game is. It's all these assets. So I feel like GTA 4 is in this area where I don't think it would really be worth it. But Red Dead Redemption, I would just, as a remaster of that, would just be making it really x86 compatible and just throwing out an EXE for PC. And it could be literally the exact same looking game, just with high resolution shadows and like high resolution support, arbitrary frame rate support, and call it a day. I would actually really like that. But this feels like an overreaction to me if it is actually the truth, because as Tom said, the issue with those GTA 3 definitive remastered editions, whatever they're called, was the quality of the porting effort and the attention to detail for all these things, which was lacking. And it wasn't the idea itself, which makes me think the fact that they canceled this is maybe because these projects had a similar quality trajectory already or something like that. And they were like, oh gosh, we can't bring that out again. Because like, let's not forget, this is a company, they just love money. So, so that's why they would maybe not bring it out. I don't think it's like a knee-jerk reaction to the very idea of this, but maybe to actually what they had in the pipeline.
Well, from my perspective, the GTA Definitive Edition was essentially fundamentally flawed on the first principles, which is to say, okay, we're going to take these mobile ports of these games that we did and put them in Unreal Engine 4.
Weird. So weird.
Which is like, two no-nos straight from the off. And then, the execution was flawed in that, it was, okay, let's AI upscale a bunch of assets. Let's smooth off geometry. Let's not really pay attention to the animation. Let's dip into Unreal Engine 4's toolbox in a really cack-handed, haphazard way and get it all wrong. So that is certainly, if that was the trajectory of these two proposed remasters, then holy crap, no. I think the bottom line is that, all that's really needed is, as you say, Alex, an x86 port of Red Dead Redemption, okay, a decent PlayStation port. It doesn't need to rewrite the rule book, because we've seen from the back compat version on Xbox Series X and Series and the Series console, Series S will be 1440p. That looks fine. Just basically produce a version of the game that will run on today's hardware and the hardware of tomorrow. That's kind of it. Just preserve them. Don't try to enhance them in ways that as you say, the only real route forward is to go for a full remake, right? To bring those older games up to par with like GTA 5 and Red Dead 2, preferably Red Dead 2. But, that would be a gigantic difference in resource allocation compared to doing a remaster. So on the one hand, I'm kind of happy that they're potentially not happening, assuming the stories are true. But on the other hand, I do think that those games deserve better preservation and just sort of moved into the modern era, so they work on today's machines and will work on future machines. Because, if you do that work in the here and now, then, the way the consoles are going, everything will be backwards compatibility moving forward. So, your games will continue to sell on future platforms as well as the current one. And of course, getting everything sorted on PC is, just good practice, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But, I guess we'll have to see whether anything happens on that. But in the meantime, Red Dead Redemption, obviously, yes, I think we've mentioned that a couple of times. Xbox One X, Xbox Series consoles, it's really good. Best way to play